Hello, my name is Jessie Mercer, and today I'm going to be presenting my KIN 515 gold medal profile for women's golf. I'm going to be predominantly looking at the importance of power and strength in the gold medal profile, and specifically we'll be looking at the women's game versus the men's. So first, I would like to go through kind of some of the changes in the athleticism of golf over the last 25 years. So Tiger really drove this change. Tiger Woods was kind of the first person to work out. He was the first person to have a full team around him. He was the first person to really be vocal about what he was eating and his nutrition and all that kind of thing. So while golf was still athletic before that, Tiger really kind of changed the importance of it around it, the importance of strength and power, the importance of being a well-rounded athlete. Since then, you'd be very hard pressed to find an individual who did not work out a ton or an individual who did not look at all areas of their game, at all areas of their life as an importance to their golf game. So when we think about Tiger Woods, we think about his winning putts, those putts that he made to win golf tournaments. Those are the things that we see on highlight reels. While Tiger Woods was an amazing putter, as people have evaluated his game more and more throughout since the late 90s and early 2000s when he was really winning, what they found is Tiger was actually one of the best ball strikers in the game from 150 to 200 yards, while his putting, while good, was a little bit more equal with his peers, but it was the long game shots that more set him apart. So I know I've talked about Tiger and I am going to focus on the women's game, but it just kind of sets the tone for the changes that we've seen in golf. On the top there, you see Lexi Thompson, one of the most fit golfers on the LPGA Tour, very vocal about her workout regime, and one of the best drivers of the golf ball. On the bottom there, we have the transformation of Bryson DeChambeau, pre-COVID, post-COVID. He decided and did a lot of research on how he could get better, and that was by gaining more speed and power and being able to drive the golf ball better. He ended up winning the US Open last season, so a lot of what he did paid off. And then just some other things, the changes of golf in the last 25 years in Canada, or in Ontario specifically, it being recognized as a sport by the Ministry of Ontario, the implementation of the long-term athlete development model, and therefore the implementation of national teams and provincial teams, and of course, most recently, it becoming an Olympic sport again for the first time since the early 1900s. So all those things really kind of building golf's profile and more of an athletic and the need to be a well-rounded athlete to be a successful player. So again, I've kind of mentioned that the things I really want to focus on with this gold medal profile is the power and the long game. So there's very different areas of the game, but we want to focus on how to be a gold medal profile, a gold medal player with our long game. Obviously, all areas of our game need to be strong, but this is kind of the newest kind of up and coming research that people are doing, and so I'd like to look into that. So from a technical standpoint, I'm going to look at ball speed, the importance of ball speed, the increases in ball speed, the different types of metrics you can use for ball speed. Tactical, we're going to look at strokes gained, which is a metric that was only first used in the LPGA Tour this past season in 2021. It has been used in the men's game for quite a number of years, but for the first time, we have that data for our LPGA players, which is fantastic. Of course, because it was the first year on the LPGA Tour, we don't have that kind of data for our national team or provincial team players. So the best thing we have available to us is shot-by-shot data and NTP testing. So I'm going to look at that and compare it where I can. Physiological range of motion is strength, again, how it relates to the ability to drive the golf ball, to the ability to move, to the ability to gain power. And then psychological, sleep, confidence, and kind of the more measurables in that sense are on-course decision-making and course management. So this is just a quick glimpse at the Canadian long-term athlete development model. Of course, we have our compete to win stage there, which is our LPGA and PGA Tour players. When we talk about the national team or Golf Canada's national junior program, we're looking at more of that train to compete stage, maybe entering into the compete to win for the high level on that program. And then when we look at our provincial team athletes, we're looking at kind of that learn to compete into that train to compete stages. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the tactical metrics of strokes gained. So just some background in the past, the predominant metric on the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour was greens and regulation, driving accuracy, putting statistics, putts per green or putts per round. But that doesn't do a really good job of capturing kind of more recovery shots. You get up and down from a bunker, and that would be considered a check mark on the sand save. But did you hit a really good sand shot that resulted in an easy putt, or did you hit a not so good sand shot that was made up for by a really good putt? So the strokes gained allows us to really more isolate and determine what parts of our game are the ones that are giving us the most advantage over the rest of the field. So you can compare your strokes gained putting versus your strokes gained off the tee and see how strong that part of your game is compared to the rest of the field. So again, the old saying, drive for show, putt for dough, no longer holds true under a lot of the new research. You know, the PGA Tour pros joke, drive for dough, putt for dough. They're both very important, but an increasing importance has been placed on the long game in the last number of years. Okay, so here we're going to look at the strokes gained on the LPGA Tour for the top 10 players in the world. So very exciting that in 2019, we have this data for our female golfers. So what you're seeing here is the top 10 players in the world at the end of 2021. It's changed a little bit since then, but this is based on solely the full season of 2021 data. So what you see here is strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained approaching the green, strokes gained around the green, and strokes gained putting. So a couple of really interesting things to note here. Again, that drive for show, putt for dough, not holding true, as we have 10 of the top, as we have 4 of the top 10 players in the world with actually having negative strokes gained putting. So that just shows that they're actually losing strokes to the rest of the field when it comes to their putting game. What does hold true here is that every single one of these players has positive strokes gained in strokes gained to the around tee to green and strokes gained approach to green. The only anomaly we have here is kind of Inbee Park and Lydia Ko with the negative strokes gained driving. But again, you know, you look at someone like Inbee, she is able to make up for that with her putting. She is the best putter on tour. She leads the tour in that statistic. The other thing you can notice here is Si Young Kim, who led the tour in strokes gained tee to green. She was gaining almost 3 shots around compared to her peers on the LPGA Tour, where Inbee Park, who led the tour in strokes gained putting, was only gaining 1.24 strokes per round against her peers. So it really shows that how much you can actually gain in the long game versus the short game if you're really accurate at and really strong at capitalizing in on that part of your game. So again, as we look through all these, it is pretty conclusive that the long game is as important, if not more important, than the short game, which is a little bit of a mentality change from the history of the game. And then, of course, just always nice to point out our Canadian Brooke Henderson, who's 10th in the world, a great golf driver of the golf ball, a great iron player. And again, as Canadians being her toughest critic, it is her short game that is holding her back. However, as we can see with this data, she really does make up for it with her long game. Okay, so now I'm going to compare Nelly Korda, the #1 player in the world at the end of 2021, with some of our Canadian players. So again, we don't have the ability to capture strokes gained with our players, but we do have some other things. We have shot by shot data, which is kind of the equivalent on our level. So players will go in after each of their rounds and they will input all their shots. If they missed the fairway, what did that look like? Did they have a shot? Did they not have a shot? Were they able to recover? So this is as close as we can come to replicating strokes gained. However, shot by shot spits out the data we collect from it gives you kind of a handicap for each part of the game. So we're looking at 2 players here. So this player here, this is her 2021 data. She went on to is now playing at a Division I university in the US. And this player here has not yet graduated high school, but did, following the 2021 season, make the national team. So we have 2 kind of at our top level junior golfers in Ontario, one going on to the NCAA Division I and one going on to the national team. So this is inversely related. So over here with strokes gained, you want a lot of strokes gained. So we want the higher numbers. Here, it's taking handicap. So obviously you want to get that close to 0 or under 0. But we really can show that the weakest area of our game in Ontario is that approach shot, with both of these players approaching kind of a 10 handicap. Now they are making up for it in their putting, both of them at a 1. This player, a very good driver of the golf ball, so would probably have a very high strokes gained off the tee. But the area where the top pros are excelling with that approach shot or that full long game shot is our weakest area in our Canadian and Ontario junior girls. So this is a pretty firm evidence that it is the weakest part of our game, and that is the complete inverse opposite of what we want when we compare it to the top players in the world. Another metric we can use instead of strokes gained is our national testing protocols, which are standardized across the country to kind of compare. And one of them is the wedge combine. So the wedge combine, players will hit a series of shots at a certain yardage. The total yardage and the dispersion is recorded. So how far offline did they hit it, and were they actually able to control their golf ball and make it go the distance that they wanted to? Again, that long game, being able to hit it where you want it from a longer distance. With this testing protocol, we want to do this at the first training camp every week, and then we use it to track their success. It's a great tool to use just as a training drill to spit out different yardages and see if you can hit that yardage. But again, when we are testing it, we want to set it up that it is test, that there is a date in the calendar that they're working towards. So here's an example. Again, this is that second athlete that we saw a couple slides ago who went on to make the national team. This is her results from the end of 2021. So when we look at this, again, this is a Canadian test that was actually set up by someone who was in this course a few years ago to better standardize and be able to test these metrics across the board. But now that we've had a few years of data gathering these metrics, the national team average on the girls' side is 70, and our provincial average is 30. So we are, while all of Canada is behind in this regard of being able to control the golf ball at a distance we want it to go, we are significantly behind in Ontario. So again, our Team Ontario average is at 50, and the province as a whole, and this is based on the top 30 or 40 players in the province, while the Team Ontario is the top 5 to 10, is 30. So quite a bit behind that national benchmark that we want. And again, that national benchmark being quite a bit behind the international benchmark. So again, this kind of really concludes that the area of the game that is most successful on the LPGA Tour is our biggest weakness in Canada, and something that we need to work better at. So again, just to summarize the tactical benchmark, we have our tests, we have our shot-by-shot data, and we have our national testing protocols that we can work towards to get better. But again, we do really need, there is evidence that that is the most important part of the game. So the top 10 players in the world are all within the top 30 in the strokes gained of every strokes gained metric. It's a total strokes gained metric. So it really shows how important it is. It shows that the full shots are much more important than the short shots, and that the tee to green and approach to green are the biggest areas to pick up shots. Again, in Canada, we have our NTP data showing the weakest part is our full wedge shots, and shot by shot tell us the same thing. So in conclusion, we are collecting good benchmark data to indicate that we are not where we need to be. But again, the data is showing the significant more importance on that long game. Next, I'm going to talk about ball speed on the technical side. So while many things relate to the physicality of being able to create better, more ball speed, it is also a technical step to be able to get your swing into the right mechanics to create that speed once you've built it, once you have the athleticism and built into your body. So again, another kind of change in golf in the last few years is changing from continually talking about club head speed to changing about ball speed. So club head speed is how fast the club is coming through at impact, where ball speed is how fast that ball is coming off the club face at impact. So the reason ball speed is a little bit more used recently is that it actually incorporates the quality of the impact made. So you could be swinging it as hard as you can, but if it's not translating to the golf ball coming off the club face, it's kind of irrelevant. Still a great indicator, but ball speed does tend to be a better indicator of the ability to get that ball in the fairway, the ability to get it into play, and so on. And again, this drive for more distance, the idea that strokes gained has really, the strokes gained data has really opened the door to the importance of that side of the game. So our Canadian Ontario NTP data, ball speed at impact, measured in miles per hour. The national test is 6 balls, and the average score from those. Again, we wanted this as the first training camp of the year, and it can be measured and maintained to make sure it's being maintained throughout the season. But when we want to be working on it and working on those technical and physical abilities during the off season, and then during the season, just maintaining what we've created. So looking at where we stand in ball speed in Canada right now, on the LPGA Tour, the average is 150 miles per hour. Nelly Korda, who is the #1 player in the world that we've looked at earlier, and the #1 in strokes gained off the tee, she sits at 150 miles per hour. Also, when you look at some of the top strokes gained off the tee, while some of them may not have won, they are the kind of the up and comers. They're going to be the next ones to win. Where on the contrary, if you look at the top players on strokes gained putting, they are not as highly ranked overall. So it does show that this side of the game can really be made up for a weaker part of your game, and that if you're high in these stats, if you're high in strokes gained off the tee, if you're high in strokes gained approach to green, that is a much stronger indicator that you may be winning a tournament very soon than if you're the best putter. So we are doing well here in Canada. In Ontario, our average is 134 miles per hour. Taking into account, of course, that these are junior golfers. This data is based on junior golfers under the age of 19. So they are still growing. They are still going through puberty. So they are on track to reach that LPGA Tour benchmark. The top end of our Canadian amateurs are all above 145. So it does show that we are progressing in that right direction. Just the nature of the athletes that I am working with are kind of at that younger age, but we are seeing this side of it going in the right direction. So physiological benchmarks, again, relating to that drive for speed and distance and the long game. Incredibly important is the ability for range of motion and strength training, specifically spinal mobility and the ability to interact with the ground. So this is an interesting graph that kind of shows the speed of the golf club through the different parts of the golf swing. So again, if we look at kind of where it is the fastest, the top of the backswing and at the impact position, so that really shows kind of, if you're thinking about where your body is at those different parts of the swing, really important that you're able to move in those directions since your body is going through that motion at such a fast pace. So really important spinal mobility, shoulder rotation, trunk rotation, and then again, the ability to interact with the ground and use the ground power. This is something that is being worked on pretty heavily with a lot of our girls on our team right now. You know, just some females tend to be a little lighter on their feet. I don't really know the reason for that. I was a figure skater and I find that's something that I struggle with. And we actually have two other multi-athletes that were figure skaters that struggle with that as well. So the ability to use the ground and create force with the ground and really use the lower half of your body. Again, sorry, that was a little bit of a divergent thing, but these are all very important parts. And because of the speed that we're trying to gain, really important that we have that mobility to be able to make strong contact and keep our bodies safe and mobile. So here we are at our physical testing protocols. So again, all very standardized tests. And again, this is more of a test to determine the mobility you have, determine the strength you have, determine the power you have, and then a strength program can be created to increase those areas where we need to. Every golfer is different, and golf being an individual sport, we have the luxury that we can run multiple multiple individual versus a team workout. Well, we have a team workout. We're also a small group, so our strength and conditioning coach can really hone in on an individual, even within a group setting. But again, these are all very important with the golf swing and that drive for power. So psychological benchmarks, of course, this is a little bit of a harder one to grasp because we have things like confidence, which is hard to measure. We have things like sleep, which is subjective, and recovery. A lot of our athletes use great training devices like Whoop and Apple Watches that help them keep on top of these. But again, not a lot of measurables from the coaching side. So a couple of things that we can measure is practice habits and on-course decision-making. So again, one of the things that we're able to track is whether or not our athletes are using shot-by-shot data. Golf Canada uses Approach to Hole, which is essentially the same thing, just difference in preference of apps. But we have the ability as coaches to go into those shot-by-shot records. We have the ability to see when they've played around, if they are recording their score in there. So again, the accountability measure there of using that tool and being able to see and use that tool to their advantage. We did see that those two athletes we spoke of earlier, really actually what you saw there was an improvement. It really helped them understand that part of their game, where a couple other athletes who did not use the data available to them, it's harder to understand what you need to work on. Again, sticking to a plan, coming up with a plan in your yardage book together with your coaches and your peers on how you're going to play the golf course. So that's something that we're able to measure. The importance of that is something that our sports psychologist works very heavily with our athletes on. And then again, practice habits. Again, very individual sport, very individually driven. We don't have ice time that we have to go from 1 till 2 and then the gym from another time, which is a blessing and a curse at the same time. An individual can spend the entire day at a golf course practicing, but again, using those practicing with a purpose, and again, implementing those habits into those athletes. Another kind of one of our tests, I guess you could say, that we do with our athletes at our first training camp is we give them yardage books and pin sheets for the first day of kind of the interclub competition. And the test is simply to see if they use those pieces of information. Some don't, and that's a really great a test to just be able to use the information you have. Google Earth is great. Speaking with peers who have played golf courses before, every golf course is going to require a little bit different of a plan. But again, are you using that data available to you? If you're given a pin sheet a day before, are you able to go in and make the plan, or do you not? And that is, it may sound silly, but it is a huge gap in the difference between our provincial level athletes and our national level athletes. And even the national to the NCAA or the LPGA Tour, which is their next step, you'd be hard pressed to find an LPGA Tour player who didn't look at their yardage book and their plan on every shot. Where on our national team, they're using it like 75% of the time. So that is a huge area to really hone in on the game. A couple other things to consider here is parental and cultural support. There's a lot of studies being done currently on the Korean LPGA players because of their success. A lot of that is cultural, a lot of that is parental, and just the idea that they are, there's so much support put on them at a younger age to reach that goal. They're so narrowed in on their focus, they know exactly what they're doing. Of course, positive and negatives to that. But again, just something to consider as kind of a maybe not as measurable psychological impact. So that wraps it up. Here are some external resources, as well as a lot of this kind of stems from the Mark Brody Every Shot Counts book, which is a great book, but he also has some academic papers as well. Again, kind of in conclusion, the long game is very important and something that is one of our biggest gaps in our Canadian and Ontario system. So again, the importance of that in reaching the highest pinnacle of the game and across the board. Thank you.